Good evening. Welcome to MUFON Los Angeles. My name is Steve Murillo. I'm the State Section Director of MUFON LA. Tonight we have an interesting program. Ever wish you could get up close and personal with experts in the field of ufology, alternative science, and remote viewing? Assist with their research, learn their secrets, become their trusted friend? That's the enviable achievement of Paula Harris, internationally acclaimed journalist and author of Connecting the Dots, Making Sense of the UFO Phenomenon. She was mentored by the late J. Allen Hynek and Colonel Philip Corso, who wrote The Day After Roswell. Harris went on to interact with some of the field's most enlightened and controversial investigators. Whether she's learning about animal mutilations from Linda Moulton Howe, exploring the spiritual implications of ET presence with Monsignor Baldacci, or analyzing alleged alien implants with Daryl Sims, Paula Harris brings journalistic integrity and a fresh enthusiasm to her research. In her presentation, Harris will not only cover highlights of ufology's past, but point the way towards its future, a future that includes disclosure and new social political paradigm for the 21st century space exploration. She's based out of Rome, Italy, and we bring her all the way from Rome, Italy tonight. Paula brings a global perspective to the study of extraterrestrial reality. She has a master's degree in education and teaches at the American Overseas School of Rome. Let's all give her a warm welcome, Paula Harris.
I want to do this a little informally tonight because I want to have like a little chat with everybody. I have just come back in April from the X conference in Washington, D.C., where there was Paul Davids with me and several other very, very important people who give information, top researchers. I'm so happy to see him. And Yvonne Smith. Yvonne Smith came to, she's here too, and she came to Italy several years ago when Colonel Corso came to Italy to speak. And Colonel Corso came twice to Italy to speak. And I was with Yvonne, with Colonel Corso, so it's like having a reunion of a lot of friends, because a lot of the people that do very, very important work have become friends. I think that's what Steve was trying to tell you all. As I was watching the video that you were watching, I noticed that they were talking about abductions, people who really have courage to speak about their experience. And we were using that word alien. Well, did we ever look at the perspective that maybe the aliens think we're alien? So I'd like to invite you to think a little differently tonight, because we're looking at everything from our perspective, from where we are coming from. And what I'd like to talk about are several different things. First of all, the idea of the UFO phenomenon. The UFO means unidentified flying object, and we have so much research and so many films and so much proof that that isn't even a question whether UFOs exist. Unidentified flying objects exist. Now, whether we're going to attribute alien life forms or disembodied intelligence or different visits from other dimensions, that's another issue. That's a conclusion issue. And actually, my book, Connecting the Dots, doesn't have a conclusion. All it does is present you with 26 different interviews of people that I have done over the years since I've worked with Dr. J. Allen Hynek. These 26 different experts they go from ground crew astronaut Clark McClellan to Padre Balducci, who was mentioned there, David Icke, Uri Geller, everyone, Richard Boyland, there's Richard Hoagland, all these different people speaking from their perspectives are in the book, because I automatically assume that we are intelligent people and we can figure out what's going on. So I really invite you to not make any conclusions, but to look at information. That's really why I'm here tonight, just to give you information. I have so much information to give you that my biggest problem right this minute is how to narrow it down, because my life is really interesting. 1 week ago, I was in Switzerland doing the Billy Meier follow-up, and I did see Billy Meier, and I was up at his compound, and I've been dreaming about going there for a long time, because there is some truth to that story, and I wanted to see what I could hone from being in that area. I don't have time to talk about that tonight. That'll be for another time, but I go from doing that to speaking in Roswell to talking to a lot of different people. This year alone, I had Travis Walton at my home in Rome, because I live in Rome. I'm a journalist who works out of Rome. I had John Mack for a week. I've spoken to several different researchers who come to Italy. Usually I invite them to come, because in Italy we are doing some serious research. We have some serious conferences. And I have to say, even though I've lived in America for 30 years, that the seriousness that we take the subject in Italy is not like nowhere else. Italy, because I live there, but we have world symposiums. The symposium at San Marino, where we have all representatives of all over the world coming to meet like a United Nations and share information. There is no joking around. It is a serious matter, very serious enough so that the Mexican government has really tried to ask for help when they had their situation on May 11th. You know, I was looking at that, and everybody's talking about it. We had it on every national television program. I brought some of the footage for you to see tonight, because it is a different situation in Europe. No one is afraid to use the word UFO, because all it means is an unidentified flying object. And we have a lot more openness, I think, less censure in the material. At least that's what I understand. I just did a radio show, the Mike Murphy Show, and Mike Murphy was telling me, this is out of Kansas City, that he hadn't seen the footage. So I assumed that some of you hadn't either, so I brought it for you tonight. And one of the things I wanted to say before I show you some of the things that I brought you for you to examine. Remember, we're keeping an open mind, we're keeping the conclusion open. Remember that we need to have a different perspective. And people keep saying, well, you know, if this is so real, then why isn't the government coming out with what the story is? Well, you know, I thought about it, and then all at once I saw this film that explained it beautifully. I would like to show a piece of this film to you now, because I think it explains what we call cover-up. I think it explains why there are not more people interested in the phenomenon, why there are not more meetings like this, because this is what the strategy is. Could you run that for me?
This was to form a top-secret commission to deal with it.
And what agency will we be operating?
None. We will have complete control. Well, Mr. Secretary. And our mandate exactly? To investigate the event and all of its implications. The technology. And any other such events, should they occur. But most of all, to safeguard the public interest. That's why this information has to be so carefully controlled. You think about religious institutions. I mean, if this were all to just come out, what are people going to believe in? Not to mention the effect on our social and our political institutions. Even the military. Especially the military. I mean, what the hell are we dealing with here? Is it friendly? Is it hostile?
Maybe it's neither. Maybe they're just studying us the way we study insects.
Well, the point is, there could be panic if this all came out. And we're supposed to ensure domestic tranquility, not eliminate it. I mean, what if people think that we are not in control of the skies? They'd be right.
But what about leaks? Someone's bound to say something.
Well, as long as we control the way the information is released, leaks shouldn't necessarily hurt us.
In fact, mingled with a little well-placed disinformation, they should help. Hoaxes.
Oh, yes, certainly. And also accurate information released from less than reputable sources. And that's not such a bad technique either.
Recruit a group of crackpots.
Exactly. Gentlemen, if you'd open the folders in front of you, as you can see, under magnification, the creature's skin appears to be mesh-like.
Okay, you can stop it.
Lizard.
You can stop it now.
Has there been any communication?
Okay, this is perfect, thanks to Paul. This is from the film Roswell. When I saw this, I said, this is really the answer. I mean, this is the way, this is the plan. This is the way it has to be run. At least this is the way a group of people think it has to be run. There are people, there are real sincere scientists, real sincere researchers that want to come forth with the truth. Like there are real sincere military people that have come forth with with the truth. And I have to tell you that the person that I will talk about probably the most is Colonel Philip Corso. If you read my book, you'll see that quite by accident, I met Colonel Corso in 1997 when I shared the room next to him at the Sally Port Inn. I mean, the Sally Port Inn was completely booked, and my office had sent me to do a story on this person that I had never heard of before. This was the magazine I wrote for at the time, Notiziario UFO, which was a beautiful, slick magazine that had a lot of the information that you all know. You're probably all familiar with you know, the Roswell case and all the other cases that have come through history. And they had sent me to do this story, and I didn't know who this was, had not read the book, and by accident, because a lot of my life is coincidence, I had the room next to Colonel Corso, and I went to the press conference, and I asked him a question in Italian about this famous Santilli footage, you know, the alien autopsy footage, and he answered me in Italian, because let's remember that Colonel Corso was the head of intelligence in Rome from 1944 to 1947. Colonel Corso did the Korean War, he did World War II, the Battle of Monte Cassino. He has Italian roots. I mean, when I finally met the gentleman and convinced my boss from the magazine to bring him to Italy, I realized that we had here someone that had a background that was impeccable, that was telling the truth, just as they had mentioned in this film. What if we have somebody who leaks? But Colonel Corso, ironically enough, spoke in Italy, and quite often 2 times, and did not speak here at any conference before he died in 1998. I'll talk a little bit about that. Now, I wrote the preface to The Day After Roswell. My editor translated this book. It's called Giorno dopo Roswell. I can't tell you how many people read this in Europe. I mean, this did get out. I mean, it was very, very important that you understand that nothing gets done, but it does. All over the world, this is a phenomenon where people are trying to bring forth the truth. I wrote the preface to this book. I became very good friends with the Colonel and his family, and, you know, Corso Jr. was at the X conference this year. I highly recommend that if it is done again next year that you go, because some of the speakers were incredible. I also have to tell you that Colonel Corso left us a lot of material. One of the things that he left us was his original notes. So my editor, Maurizio Baiata, had this book printed, and these are Colonel Corso's notes, and he talks about a new world, the dawning of a new age, because Corso had a contact experience. Maybe you didn't know that. It's in my book, word for word. It's very strange, because when I did the first interview with Colonel Corso, he told me about it, and I didn't want to hear about it, because I'm such a nuts and bolts reporter that when you tell me about contact, I can't go there with my data bank. This is 1997. I've come a long way since then. So Colonel Corso has talked about his involvement in back engineering, yes, but Colonel Corso had a very important contact experience in Red Canyon with an entity. He is basically a believer, and I'll have to say this, that that the entities that were found at Roswell, and he did see one of the bodies, were time travelers trying to tell us something from coming back in time. He said they were us from the future trying to tell us to watch the situation with nuclear. Now, since then, all kinds of stories have come out about time travel. He also brought us some material on the Philadelphia experiment. Why do we get this in Italy? I mean, why are we getting it in Europe? Why are we getting a lot of this information? I can't answer that for you. I can just give you the information tonight. Let me tell you something about my background so that you understand where I'm coming from. So I'll start the slideshow right now. I'm pressing the button. It's not going. Okay. I think there's one slide before this. Yeah, I don't know if you can see this. Okay. My whole interest in this, I've never seen a UFO, and I've never been contacted, and I'm not saying I don't want to be, but I come from a place where it was pure an emotional response to Close Encounters of the Third Kind that began my research. In 1979, when I saw it all at once, I had an emotional reaction to it, and I decided I wanted to meet J. Allen Hynek. So by accident, again, I was at a wedding in Chicago, Illinois, and I said, let me go into CUFO, Center for UFO Studies. He'll never be there in a million years, but I'll go in there and see what they're doing. And sure enough, this gentleman with the pipe, very distinguished looking, came from behind the the wall, this pillar on the wall, and he looked at me and he said, welcome, he said, I hear you speak Italian. Would you do my Italian translations? So I worked, there's a very young Paula Harris with Alan Hynek and Roberto Pinotti, who is the head of our, what we call MUFON. It's the Centro Ufologico Nazionale CUN. And he, when Hynek talked to me, he said, would you do me a favor, bring Roberto Pinotti to Chicago to a convention, because he said, we were the ones in Italy that had the original slides that were given to us by the Air Force. So he had no real photos of UFOs to show, and Pinotti did. He had about 20 that came from the Air Force, actually. And so I was instrumental in bringing Pinotti to this conference. I became very good friends with Alan, and Mimi was totally devastated when he died in 1986. I did not want to touch the UFO phenomenon or any investigations after that until I moved to Italy in 1992. And Dr. Pinotti said, you have such a background, please, can you work with us? This is a letter that Alan wrote to me, and that's a picture we took of him, where he asked me to go to an art gallery in Florence to see a particular painting that we now call, look at how it gets into the popular jargon, Madonna of the UFO. But it has a UFO in the background where these shepherds are looking at it. It's a Madonna child picture. Very famous in Piazza della Signoria. They have this particular painting. But if you've done any research at all, and I think I even have it on my website, there are some 30 or 40 Renaissance paintings that clearly show UFOs. So I write for the magazine Nexus, Duncan Roads, Australia, and we have Nexus Italia, so I'm writing for them right now. This is backwards. I hope they're not all backwards. This is the magazine. I did that story at Fouché Alien Rapture. I did the Aurora, the story of that particular technology at Area 51. I'm sorry, it's backwards. This is the other one. I guess some of these are. This is the magazine now, Notiziario UFO, for which I write. Okay, this is the Ed Fouché story. This is backwards, but anyway, it shows, I did an interview with him. He's also in my book, where he talks about back technology. This is backwards, I'm sorry. I didn't get a chance to do this ahead of time, but this is the day after Roswell with my preface. I call myself the Stromthurman of Italy. This is the colonel with us at the office. You know, this is the staff, and my editor is the first gentleman that you see on the right. This is the colonel during one of his appearances at a convention in Pescara, and I was very, very careful of the colonel because I was always afraid that some attempt would be made on his life. So, and then Yvonne, you were with us during this period, and he had a lot to say, and people really were very fascinated by his knowledge and his description. I have a little video to show you that was done in Italy when he spoke. Now, this is a friend of mine. You may recognize her. Her name is Ursula Andrus. Her son, Dimitri, was very interested in UFOs, so he asked if he could meet Colonel Corso. This is Colonel Corso in Rome talking with Italian television. This is backwards, I'm sorry, it's the dawning of a new age. It's the book that is written only in Italian, that's put out in Italian, and then mine is backwards, I'm sorry, and this is Connecting the Dots, my book. Do we have one? Okay. So some of the people in my book, and there are so many that you probably have heard of, are giving me an interview to talk about putting together a total picture. Some of the people are people like, talking about the abduction phenomenon, are people like John Mack and Leo Sprinkle, Richard Boylan, and one of the people that talks about this in a very enlightened way, and he's pretty well known now for having had the courage to come forth, is Padre Corrado Balducci. I live near the Vatican, so Monsignor Balducci is very accessible. Plus, we've become very good friends. I mean, we have dinner together very often. He's very curious about the actual investigations. What he's had courage to say is this, and I think it's very important. He said that a lot of the Christian religion is based on witness testimony. I mean, the witnesses of Christ being on the earth. He says, we take witness testimony as being serious. Why, then, if we take witness testimony as being serious, why are we not taking the thousands and thousands of witness testimonies in the UFO phenomena seriously? He said, if people are seeing things, if they're reporting things, then this should be studied in a serious way. He's gone one step further. He's talked about, in my book, he talks about the history of these sightings. He thinks, though, he has his own bias. His conclusion is that they must be much more evolved, possibly angels, on the status of evolution. He says, we're probably the bottom of the barrel, he said, because we haven't changed our modus operandi in thousands and thousands of years. And he said, if we're being observed, we are not doing things very differently from the past. He believes they are evolved beings. He says, and he's been asked, because I've taken a lot of people to see Padre Balducci. Some of the people are Stephen Greer, who's met him, Richard Boylan, John Mack, Richard Haynes. They've all gone to see him. He said, they've asked him the obvious question. They said, does it have anything to do with the devil? He said, his answer is, the devil doesn't need UFOs. So, I mean, it's logical. The man is very logical when he speaks. He basically has done a lot. I've asked him personally, I said, are you speaking officially for the Vatican? Are you speaking from your own personal advice? And he says, this is my own personal, he said, thoughts. He said, but he knows the Holy Father would ask him not to speak if it were not something that he could do. He said, I would have been silenced if it's not something that I was allowed to say. And he said, I heard that the Holy Father listens to my television appearances. And he does quite a bit of TV in Italy. This is an example of a symposium, a world symposium, because we have Gilles Dabordé, Nick Pope, we had Boris Shurinoff, we have Linda Howe, and there's Roberto Pinotti. Once a year in San Marino. Now remember, San Marino is an independent republic. It doesn't belong to Italy. It's like Monte Carlo. So the Republic of San Marino sponsors a symposium. Even the word symposium makes it really, really serious business. I mean, when we're looking at the study of UFOs, it should be more than T-shirts and little antenna, and it should be more than hokey stuff. It should be serious because the implications of it are very, very serious for humanity. I am very proud to be part of this symposium, and I think that I would encourage people to do more of this and invite people from all over the world to take part in this. Now this, I'm sorry, this is backwards. This is the translation of Catches of Heaven. I don't have time to talk about this, but I'm one of the only people, Jim Carant, Michael Hesman were the others to research the Michael Wolff story. I know it's very controversial. I found the Michael Wolff story extremely important. I found it very, very viable. There have been a lot of controversy about it, but I'll tell you that I did this with a fellow researcher, fellow journalist from Italy, from the magazine. I did not go alone. And I can tell you the only strange things, it's in my book, the only strange thing that ever happened to me was with the Michael Wolff story. Michael Wolff, I don't know if you know, claims that he worked at S4. He claims he worked on cloning. He claims he was an interface with alien beings. He claims that the government took him at a very young age because he was a contactee and he could do telepathy. He claims a lot of things. He had a lot of proof of a lot of things in his apartment. He is now deceased. He died in the year 2000. I'll share this with you because I think there's a lot of people that are interested in the contact scenario. The only strange things that ever happened to me in my career happened with Michael Wolff. When we left Michael Wolff's apartment, Adriano and I, on the way to the elevator, heard dolphin sounds. And I turned around to Adriano, who was doing the story with me, and I said, do you hear what I hear? And he said, yes. He says, but I don't know where it's coming from. Maybe it's a squeaky elevator. But when we got into the elevator, it never stopped. And when the elevator opened, it never stopped. And we called Michael the next day, and the first thing he said to me is, didn't you see them? They walked you out of my apartment. And I said, no, I didn't see anything, but I heard strange sounds that sounded like chirping, dolphin sounds. And he said, they were here. They watched us, the whole day, and he said, they were curious about human love. Evidently, he was referring to his contacts, which is the gray. This is supposed to be a photograph, by the way, of a certain gray, because all grays are not alike. We are stamping aliens as grays, and there are human-like aliens. There are all different types. Colonel Corso told me that they had documented 57 different races. I think it's very, very not productive of us to just stamp the gray as the only alien entity. Colonel Corso called it an extraterrestrial biological entity. So anyway, this is the apartment of Michael. There's his picture of his wife, who supposedly never existed, and his son, who's underneath, who's caressing a dolphin. He had so much equipment in that apartment, I don't think he himself bought it. There's Adriano, he's the colleague that I went with. This story was extremely interesting. And it's one of the stories that is in my book. This is the book in Italian. I wanted to show you. It's been translated into Italian. I know. I want to stress that we are interested in Europe in a lot of these stories because we want the original people to come, but it's handled a little differently. I want to show you how it's handled. This is Travis Walton, and he came this year to Italy, and he was on a major television show, and I want to show you a piece of this show, how it's presented. Now, that would be the second tape, not the one that I have, but the one on top. It says Travis Walton. I don't know if you see that. Could you put that in there? It's only 5 minutes, but I think you should see that when this was prime time television. It was a Sunday afternoon show that goes from 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night on prime time television. I had this tape put into NCTE format for you because we have PAL format, and I think we should see this. Okay, shut this off. Okay, okay, there we go. Travis came for a conference, but he's one of the most credible cases. This was in the 1970s, and Travis would love to speak more about his experience. I don't know if people are aware of it, but he was missing for 5 days.
Io non so se la nostra musica che sottolinea questo momento può partire. Perché oggi noi vogliamo raccontare una storia molto particolare, così per cercare di gettare anche un po' di luce di più su quello che è un grande dubbio. Siamo soli nell'universo?
Are we alone in the universe?
È un onore per me presentarvi quest'oggi Mr. Travis Walton. Hi, Mr. Walton. Travis Walton è una storia molto particolare la sua, forse la più importante storia che la Rai Radio Televisione Italiana.
It's the most important story that we've done in the RAI, he says.
Travis Walton è il più famoso rapito dagli extraterrestri della storia.
He's the most famous contact case.
Nato in Arizona, mi dica se sbaglio, Mr. Walton. E il 5 novembre del 1975 è stato rapito dagli extraterrestri. La sua storia è talmente ricca di particolari, ricca di coincidenti, testimonianze, è la storia più famosa che sia mai stata vissuta e raccontata, che nel 1993 ne è stato tratto anche un film, Bagliori di Buio.
Fire in the Sky, the movie he's talking about.
Walton ripercorrere questa storia affinché la sua vicenda fosse anche per noi motivo di ulteriori ragionamenti, motivo di ulteriori suggestioni sulla vita extraterrestre. Allora, quel 5 novembre del 1975 lei era con dei suoi amici passeggiando in un bosco e vorrei sapere come è successo tutto quello che è successo. I was one of 7 men. Io facevo parte del gruppo di 7 persone, eravamo dei io ero in una zona molto remota della foresta delle montagne dell'Arizona. Ce la stavamo andando, si stava facendo scuro, quando abbiamo visto una strana luce che veniva attraverso gli alberi.
Okay, you can turn it off. You can turn it off now.
Vicino alla strada, abbiamo fermato il camioncino, io sono sceso.
We don't have a voiceover in this in English, but I'll just tell you very quickly what happened. First of all, you can see the kind of attention it got. It was primetime television. He said, Bonalis says, this is an honor for the RAI, which is the biggest, it's the state TV, to have the most famous case of abduction. He says, it is a matter for us to think about. It is a matter for us to reflect, which I think it should be the philosophy that we have about this. And then he says to him, Travis says to him, you know, the governments are not talking about this, and he says to Bonalis, you better be careful if you have me in the studio today. And Bonalis says, well, he said, it is important that we have the truth and that we have information. And that was very, and it's part of this that you haven't seen. And then Bonalis says, are they all a certain way, or what are these beings like? And I don't know if you know the Travis Walton case, but he found himself, when he jumped off the truck to go towards the craft, he was struck by a beam of energy, and this beam of energy just left him on the ground, and the other people, the 6 other guys that he was working with, just took off in the truck because they were scared. They thought that Travis was dead. Now, I got to talk to Travis, and this is the wonderful thing about my job. I get to have peace with these people. They stay at my home, and I get to ask them questions. And I said, were you dead? And he said, possibility, he said, because when I woke up, he said, I had a crystal type thing on my chest, and he said, it could be that they were reviving me. We never looked at that issue before. He said, all I saw was this crystal-like structure on my chest. I was freaked out. He says, I jumped off the table. I grabbed the first thing I could, and I was going to throw them at them, and they turned around, the 3 beings, which were grays, turned around and left the room. Well, if they turn around and leave the room, I don't think they meant him that much harm. They just sort of left. And then Travis said, he had mentioned to Bonalis that when he kind of pushed one of them away, it was very light. Then he said he ran through the ship until he found a room that had a chair that he tried to press all the buttons to get out, he said. Then he said, all at once he saw a being that he thought was human. But he had a helmet on, and he went up to him and tried to ask, what's happening to me? What's happening? And this being took him by the arm and led him out of the craft into a hangar, which Travis to this day thinks might have been a government hangar. And he said, I saw 2 other beings that looked like the blonde, blue-eyed being, and they looked like twins. They looked like clones. They looked all alike, he said, and one of the women had a type of mask that she put over my nose, and he said, then I don't remember anything until I woke up by the side of the road where they had found me, and he said that was 5 days later. This was an important case. He told me then that the FBI, everybody was interested in it, and when his brother-in-law picked him up, he didn't take him right home, and he went into detail. Now, we talked about this. This is my job. I'll tell you the part that's my job. Since he was in my house, I said, what in the world was a UFO doing in that part of the woods? That's my question. What's it doing there? And his wife was, innocently said, well, she said in those days, she said they were doing nuclear testing in Nevada, and some of the wind or the backwind was bringing some of the fallout over in Snowflake where we were, she says, and she said some people had cancer, and since there were lawsuits and so forth, she said that's the only unusual thing I remember. I said, oh, interesting. There's backwind from some kind of nuclear experiment, and there's a UFO there. Well, let's figure out where else UFOs appear, where there is either nuclear missiles, atom bombs, some kind of base or whatever. Could this have to do with nuclear? Because, asking the question, what's it doing in the forest, for me as a journalist is a logical thing. I'm just sharing with you some of the ideas of just gabbing with these people that come to Europe to do, a conference and that stay with me and asking questions over and above. I'm sure you would have a million questions for Travis Walton today, like why isn't his book around? You cannot get the Travis Walton book, Fire in the Sky. We had a heck of a time getting copies of that. He talked about the making of the movie and how he wasn't happy with it because half of it is not true. He wanted to make his own film to show, to talk about the truth, but that's unfortunately sometimes Hollywood. And he said it did a lot to bring, attention to the case, but it's over. I mean, it's hard, nobody talks about it anymore. Travis works still in the paper mill. He's very, very honest. He's gone back to his job. He's very curious. He wants to know, like so many people that I've interviewed. Okay. This is one of the stories that I could share with you this year. This one here is San Marino Republic. Okay, this is an example of some of the people in San Marino. There's Richard Haynes. We have a lot of pilots. I think pilots are the most reputable people in Italy. Max Poggi is on my website. If you go to my website, www.paulaharris.it, you have Max Poggi's films. He basically is an Alitalia captain, 747. And Richard Haynes is one of those people that puts together all the testimony of pilots. Now, how much proof are we going to need? There's Gilles Dabaudet, Michael Heseman, Boris Chernoff. These are people internationally known for doing this. I mean, you might recognize John Mack speaking to Padre Balducci. This kind of dialogue is so important. It is so important. This is San Marino. In 2001, and it is important that we do this. Now, the coverage of UFO phenomenon. This coverage of UFO phenomenon is different. Our newspaper is Corriere della Sera, and in 2002, and I'm sorry, this is backwards, this was the front page of the paper, talked about the flyover of Washington, D.C. Of course, they showed a picture of Independence Day. They've got nothing else. I don't know why we get the front page of the Corriere della Sera, the flyover Washington, D.C. of these UFOs, 50 years to the day of the flyover before. I mean, the investigators all knew about this. 50 years to the day. I don't think aliens walk around with watches. I think that's a definite message. And we get it. We put it in the paper. We're not afraid of the word, and very little is talked about in the United States of this flyover. Now, was there scrambling of jets? Yes, there was. It was covered there. This is also, I'm sorry, this is backwards, but this is also, you're going to put this in because I didn't get a chance to put it. This is also something that happened where, it's been, here I looked for this exact photogram, the exact picture of a supposed UFO on Mars. Now, we actually use the word UFO. All that means is unidentified. In the States, I looked at that on the websites, and it mentions meteor. It just said meteor. Okay, how do we know that? I don't know how we know it's a meteor. That was very, very real. It came out of some university study, and it went in our paper, and it was news all over the world, but we're not afraid to use the word UFO. This is a Popular Mechanics article. I don't know if you saw it this year. I'm really interested in the media, so I'm bringing you some of our own stuff here in the United States. When UFOs arrive, Popular Mechanics, real interesting theory here, okay? This is hypothesis, but what is interesting to me, this is the welcoming committee. The welcoming committee here, if you give another look, okay, we know John Glenn, he'd be the welcoming. I heard John Glenn wants to go to Mars. He wants to be the first one with other astronauts to go to Mars. The other people, Hal Puthoff, yes, absolutely. He's very dedicated and looking for zero-point energy and so forth. And these other people, but one of the things that really confused me is why do we have Jane Goodall, who works with gorillas, as the welcoming committee for extraterrestrial life? What kind of perspective do we have? I mean, if there is intelligent life in the universe and they're looking at us, I'm wondering what impression they're getting. Jane Goodall is fantastic researcher, and gorillas are wonderful, but why would that be part of a welcoming committee? This is real interesting as far as our perspective in Popular Mechanics. This is as far as it goes. It's hypothesis, okay? The case, the Mexico City case. Can I suggest to you that this is one of the most important cases ever? You know why? Because they couldn't see these things. They could not see them with the naked eye. This was an accident. This plane was looking for drug dealers. It was doing a drug bust kind of situation, and they had a special camera that did infrared, and all at once they're looking at 11 UFOs. Now, somebody suggested on the way, maybe it's our material, maybe it's our planes, but why 11? If it was our stuff, 2 or 3 would have been okay. But this is 11 UFOs, so what happened was some of them were on radar, some of them were not. They did ask for help. This was a military plane. The Department of Defense is very courageous to come forth, because basically what they're doing is saying, hey, we have a problem, we're going to tell you about it. It did happen. I'm sure you countries have it. Will you give us a hand? Now, I don't know if you've seen the film, but I have it for you. So let's see. This is how our television in Italy covered it. Do you want to put it in? It's just a few minutes. It's prime time also. It was on every single channel. Well, let me talk just a little bit more. On my website, so what's happening? If they have some kind of cloaking device that nobody can see them except they happen to be caught on infrared. I've been getting some photos lately, and on my website there's an excellent example of 5 frames of a UFO uncloaking in the Black Forest of Bavaria. First it looks like a cloud, then you see a little bit of it, then all at once you see more of it, and then all at once you see a metallic craft. And it's in the Black Forest of Bavaria. It was sent to me by the person that photographed it, and I'm wondering, I have a lot of questions as a journalist. First of all, what's he doing there photographing it unless he was called to photograph it? Why am I saying this? Because I just went up to Switzerland to see the Billy Meier case, and that was the case with Billy Meier. He was given the opportunity to photograph and to take many, many movies, some of which have not been, released. So I'm wondering how these people get to photograph something like the uncloaking of a UFO. And if you go on my website, you'll see these incredible photographs. They're the first time they've ever been published. But if that's the case, if there is a cloaking device, if they appear and disappear, it doesn't mean we're not seeing them. It doesn't mean they're not there. It means we're just visibly not able to see whatever is there. And that is, I think, what freaked the Mexican government out, because I think they think that if these craft were there, or these lights, or this energy field, or whatever you want to call it, was there, and they're not able to see it except in infrared, the implications are major. And the fact that it came from the Department of Defense is not hokey. The Department of Defense is part of the government. Now, I'm very good friends with Jaime Maussan, so I know kind of good work he does, and I think he made an effort to put this out. And I don't know how many, we didn't see that there's a response from these governments, but maybe there is secret response from the governments that we'll never find out about. Maybe they called the Department of Defense and said, we got the same thing, let's talk about it. I mean, that's my hope, because, this needs to be talked about. This is serious. If we have a lot of craft flying around and we can't see them, it's serious. So, I'm not saying it's a threat, because obviously nothing's happening.
Non si sa qual è l'origine della patologia di cui stiamo parlando.
Okay.
Non andrà così male per quanto vale il crimine come invece era stato previsto.
Okay, in a few minutes you'll see it.
Il famoso anticiclone dell'azzurro, il tempo ci ha sfiorato, oggi ci sfiora appena, ma le temperature tornano.
I voli identificati ci sono i radar. Ad avvistarli vicino a Città del Messico è stato l'intero equipaggio di Merlin C-26, un aereo delle forze aeree del Messico, che in una giornata chiarissima, senza alcuna perturbazione, ha osservato attraverso i radar, e queste sono le immagini della registrazione, ad occhio nudo per prima 2 strane luci che improvvisamente accelerano da 100-600 km all'ora, che producono 3, 4, fino a 7. Cosa sono? Le ipotesi in questo caso si sprecano, da aerei segreti, dicono gli esperti, fino a una ricerca extraterrestre. Queste luci, tuttavia, assomigliano molto a quelle che da alcuni anni sono osservate in diverse parti del mondo e di cui i ricercatori italiani di varie università si stanno impegnando per scoprirne l'origine. Un luogo esemplare dove si osservano luci simili è Esdalen, una remota località norvegese, dove si vedono, si osservano e si registrano tali fenomeni che al momento comunque rimangono un mistero.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. So it gets put next to news of Iraq as far as importance. I don't know how to say this, but this is important. It's ever so important. I encourage people that have any kind of say to put forth this kind of information, because there are so many people not only that want to know, we need to know. This is something that we need to know. Now, people have asked me, now, why don't they just come out and talk about it? But this is my theory. First of all, there's a lot of researchers doing good work. I'm convinced that they're following our work. I just wish we'd get a paycheck for it. Because most of the work I do comes out from my paycheck from teaching at the photojournalism at the American Overseas School of Rome. There is no subsidy for my research. And it has come from my own personal funds and my own personal research. And the other thing is, I think it's going to be a foregone conclusion. I mean, I think that basically, I mean, there's a lot of companies, and somebody, you know, I've spoke to companies that are planning on putting installations on the moon. Installations not military, but commercial, you know, like satellite dishes and that kind of thing. And they've really got this together. They're going to actually do this. There are companies that are planning to do this. They were speakers at the conference. Now, here we are going out into space, commercial ventures into space. Here we are, they're building some kind of hotel that's going to revolve around the planet. What are you going to tell these people when they see things? Are you going to tell them, oh yeah, you knew, we you know, it's a foregone conclusion. We've been studying, you know, we didn't come out and say it, but we didn't tell you it wasn't there. We just don't know what to tell you. It's like the Paul Davids movie. It's like, yeah, we don't know what to tell these people. We don't know what's going on, so what are we going to tell them? And if we tell them, what happens to all the structures of society? That's the bottom line. That's why you don't have any kind of formal announcement, and there never will be. It's a foregone conclusion. I hope in our lifetime it'll happen so that we, you know, if they allow us to go into space, and John Mack has an incredible lecture where he says, you know, a lot of the contact experiences say we are not ready to do any kind of space travel, not this civilization. We are considered the virus of the universe. So, unfortunately, you know, unless we get our act together, we're not welcome people out there. But if we were to go out there, and if we were to find our place with cosmic cultures, we'd have to use a whole different way of doing things. And I think that would be part of the bottom line of everything. Are there cosmic cultures? Absolutely. Because there's just too much of information. You can read until you're blue in the face. There's too much out there. People have been talking about it for years. You want to go backwards to the Renaissance art. You want to go backwards to Egypt. You want to go backwards to in history. You'll find all kinds of verifications of visits. And so we don't need more information. What we need is an intelligent approach. And I agree with John Mack. He says we need he doesn't use the word paradigm. He doesn't like it. He says it's been used and overused. He says we need a new world view. And bless his heart, Colonel Corso, he says, in his contact experience when he saw the being, he asked if it was friend or foe. I say it because of my personal bias. I don't know what the beings are like. But he says he asked if it was friend or foe, and the response was neither. And Colonel Corso said to the being, what do you have to offer? And the being answered, a new world if you can take it. So just think about that one for a while. I don't know if we're real close to a new world. I don't even know if we're even thinking about it. But I think that the philosophy in the UFO phenomenon, talking about just the philosophy alone, is something that scholars should be studying, the fact that we could be cosmic cultures, apart from astronomers. I think that it's being done seriously somewhere. We don't hear about it. I'm positive it's being done seriously somewhere. I'd like to finish my talk, though, and I'd like to show you this piece because it's ever so important, about Colonel Philip Corso, because he's really basically my biggest interview, but my biggest contact. I mean, my life changed when I met Colonel Corso, and I knew him on a social level. My life changed also when I met Alan Hynek. I mean, in my book I say I've learned from the best of the best, because there's a series of people that have really affected my life. I'd like to show the last video, which is the interview that Corso did with our Johnny Carson. Our Johnny Carson's called Maurizio Costanzo. He's on every night from 11 to 2 in the morning. People watch him. There's an 80%, Italian following of that show. I'm showing you only the last part where Colonel Corso discusses his involvement. he's using a translator. At one point, Maurizio will ask him if there were other crashes, and Colonel will say yes, and Maurizio...
in un angolino della mia testa per rimandarlo in un altro momento della mia vita più avanti per poter riuscire a spiegare quello che in quel momento non ero riuscita a spiegare.
Years later, then the years passed. In 2 years, I ended up in another war in Korea.
Passano gli anni, dopo 2 anni mi ritrovo nella guerra di Corea.
Yes. There were other cases.
Sì, ci sono stati altri casi.
But I didn't cover those in my book.
Ma non ne ho parlato nel mio libro.
I discussed this with Maurizio Beata was laughing.
Maurizio ride perché ho parlato di questo con lui.
But I didn't put it in the book because it would have been too much, really.
Però non ne ho parlato nel libro perché sennò sarebbe stato veramente troppo.
Vorrei solo sapere quegli altri dopo, uguali a questi qui o diversi?
No, uguali.
They were the same. He said whether they're the same or different.
I have to tell you, I only can tell you what I saw, what I experienced.
Il nostro modello da esportazione.
People say there are other beings. I never saw any. I have no evidence of it. I only told him, the Signor, what I know, what I saw.
Io posso raccontare soltanto quello che so, quello che ho visto.
Certo.
Poi so che ci sono anche
La
altre
sua
esperienze.
testimonianza mi piace perché lui l'ha visto questo dentro al caso. Senza naso, con la bocca alla testura.
Okay, you can stop now. Yeah, okay. Okay, so she's a comedian, and she has to say, it seems to me the aliens don't have any fun because they don't have any sex organs, they're bald. You know, and she goes on to ridicule the thing because that's her job. I mean, she's basically, a comedian, and that's the way it went, but that's pretty powerful testimony, I think, especially on prime time. And he did that there, and he did it at San Marino at the international conference, and to this day, I have a hard time. They know, I used to walk with the colonel under my arm because I was afraid he'd fall. He was 83 years old, my biggest fear, because his son let us have him, his daughter-in-law, with the condition that his daughter-in-laws and his nephews came because, Colonel is Italian, Sicilian roots, and so forth. He wanted the kids to see Italy. So, his father said, his son said to me, nothing must happen to him. And so I was like with him like all the time. And it's very, very difficult for me because I've had a lot of the people that I have worked with and also protected in a lot of way be gone. I don't know how to say, in another dimension. I don't believe in death. And lately, I will tell you one thing that I don't know how you want to interpret this or what your belief system is, but a Native American lady once, when I went to see her, very spiritual Native American woman, said to me, when you just walked into this room, there was a man that walked in behind you, she said, with he was like a military man with medals, and he wants you to have his briefcase. And she just blew me away, and I said, what? And she said, yes, there was a military man. He walked in without, I'm hearing he wants you to have his briefcase. Well, it freaked me out totally because when Colonel Corso was in Italy, he had a lot of material in his briefcase he was giving away to everybody, and I used to hide his briefcase on him because I didn't think that he should be giving away this material without consulting somebody. And so it was one of the things that that I and Liz used to do. We used to hide his briefcase and used to say, that briefcase, where is it? I don't know where I left it. And we'd just look at each other because we weren't about to let him, do all that without approval from something. And so what happened was that after his death, when a Native American lady tells me that he wants me to have his briefcase, I realized a couple of things, and one of the things is that maybe it was just transition. Death is a big mystery, but that lately anymore, there's been a lot of coincidences and strange things that have happened around Colonel Corso. And I think that one of my problems as a journalist and as doing this work, and Colonel Corso is just one of many, 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 many people that I've covered and worked with, is there is this huge responsibility to go forth and keep doing this work and to not let it just sit there and not let it be forgotten. And I don't know how many of you read the book, and I don't know how many of you will read the book after this, but this kind of testimony is mind-blowing. The reason why he did it, for his grandsons. They asked him if this was true and what he did, and he said, I think they can handle it, Paula. He says, I'm positive people can handle it. They say that people can't, but they can handle it, and I think that my children and grandchildren should know. So I think that that takes a tremendous amount of courage. There are so many courageous people out there that deserve this heralding. And I really do this for this reason. There is no other reason except to bring information to the general public, whoever wants to hear it. People say, do you believe in UFOs? Well, it's not a religion. It's not to be foisted on humanity. It is not to be foisted on the person next door. If people are curious, information should be given to them. And if the government of Mexico asks for help, I think they should be getting it. And so this is how I'd like to wrap up this talk, and I would be very willing to answer questions, and I don't know what the protocol is for that. So if there's anything else that you would like to know about, I'd be glad to answer.
Yes. First of all, let's give Paula an incredible hand. We are just so thrilled you made the transatlantic journey to be here and promote your book and your other speaking engagements. It means a lot to us to share, and it's certainly fascinating for us to see what folks are thinking of and talking about on the other side of the world. We do have a little extra time here, so I'm going to beg your indulgence. Could you please give us like 5 minutes on the Billy Meier stuff, because we all want to know. Sorry.
No, I was gonna,
put you on the spot with that.
That's a whole other world. I'm into so much stuff. Can I just show you some film footage that comes from a Japanese video of home movies that Billy Meier did in 1970? I think that you need to see this because the Billy Meier case is so complicated. I must tell you, though, that they told me that several attempts had been made on Billy's life. The last one 6 months ago when somebody came into the compound with a knife. Another one a year ago when somebody came in with a gun and tried to shoot him. If they're trying to keep him quiet, and if they do not want this out, who is they? Well, I don't think that Switzerland wants everybody in the whole world coming to visit Billy. People like Shirley MacLaine went there. A lot of people have gone there because this is an incredible case. Over 102 photos, all kinds of home movies that you haven't even seen. Contact with a lot of written philosophy that's real interesting. It could blow open the whole thing, but if we can keep it under and do like the movie Roswell, again, going back, disinformation mixed with information, and this cosmic minestrone of everything, then nothing gets taken seriously, and let's look at it that way. I'll just show you, I'd like to show you these little pieces because I keyed them up because I thought they were really impressive. They're here.
すると UFO はこのように特殊な方法で作られた非常に柔らかい金属で一体どのようにして航空宇宙空間を飛行しこの地球の大気圏への突入ができるのだろうか。人類最高の科学技術で作られたアポロ宇宙船でも大気圏突入の際の高熱で真っ赤に焼けると言われるくらいなのだ。This exchange is taken from ここは1975年3月18日マイヤー氏が UFO を撮影した現場である UFO はこのリンケルリオットの林の上を左の方から右へとゆっくりと飛行していったというこの写真を撮った数日後マイヤー氏は宇宙人セミヤーズと8回目のコンタクトをしたというのだ。
セミヤーズの話では UFO は自分で発するある種のエネルギーによる防御スクリーンで保護されているので熱やその他の障害物が全く平時だということなんです。彼らはこの地球から530光年も離れているエラ星から乗るのにわずか7時間しかかからないということです。つまり光の分子を使った推進方法で光の速度を超えて超空間飛行に移るまでが3時間半超空間から通常の速度へ戻るのに波形推進という方法で残りの3時間半かかるんだそうで超空間内の飛行は時間がゼロで近いほんの一瞬の渦だということです。
Look at the cars. Look at the cars. You're going to see the UFO with the cars going.
UFO の実写フィルムを撮影した現場である。画面の下の方を横切る道路を自動車が走っていくのが同時に映っている。もう一度今のシーンを見てみよう。下を走る自動車の大きさと比べると UFO がいかに大きいかがよくわかる。マイヤー氏はセムヤーズに呼ばれて何度もこの UFO に乗ったというのだ。
初めのうちは UFO が私のいるすぐ近くへ降りてきて私を乗せてくれるという方法をとっていました。しかし私の噂を聞いた連中がすぐ後をつけるようになり中には宇宙人を捕まえようというので赤外線カメラや小型のレーダーを備え付けた車で付け回すものまで現れた。そこで今では宇宙人にテレパシーで指定された場所へ行って直すと瞬間的にテレポートされていつの間にか UFO の中に入ってしまうという方法に変更されています。
You can turn it off because it's in Japanese. Then turn it off. This is a Japanese. It can be ordered through Figu Center because it's a Japanese part of a Japanese video. I wanted to show you that little piece because that has cars moving underneath. So I mean that's not put together. And there are, in this particular video there are instances where you see three of them and then all at once they disappear. I mean, they're there and then they disappear and then they come back. So this idea of going in and out of dimensions or cloaking or whatever, that's been around for a long time. He was invited to do this in the 70s by the, he says, group of Pleiadians. They stopped contacting him visually like this, but he still is in contact in that he writes automatically. When I went there, I went to see the landscape because I was really curious. I tried to go to the same places to see the landscape. And I went to speak to the people that are, you know, Billy lives in kind of a compound, and who was there was Guido Mosbrucker, that wrote the And Yet They Fly book. That, to me, is the most comprehensive book on the Billy Meier case. And he was there, and he talked to us. And Billy was there, too. I mean, this was another one of those coincidences that are so strange in my life. As I was there talking to the Italian representative, and we were sitting there at a picnic table, he told me that they had to do a peace meditation. They do a peace meditation every Sunday at a certain time, and he said, since you don't speak German, he says, it's better, you know, we just do it among ourselves. Would you just wait in the meditation garden? Well, I went with my three friends in the meditation garden down the road so that they could do their peace meditation, and within minutes I saw Billy Meier come and just stare at us. So, you know, I was told not to rush up to him and not to, you know, do anything unless he was the first one to come towards us. He just looked at us for a little while and then turned around and walked away, and then we went back and I saw him talking just to people, and you know they have a lot of really interesting people that go there and live as part of that commune. It's kind of, he lives in a family type of situation. There are children running around and so forth. It's open to the public on Sundays, so they're very willing to talk about it, but you can't necessarily get close to Billy unless he wants it. Now he's still in contact with Wendell Stevens, who's a friend of mine, and he does see Wendell, he does talk to Wendell. So what am I going to write about? I'm formulating this story because I have to think about what was told to me about some of the messages and how I'm going to describe the atmosphere, because the atmosphere was beautiful. It was garden-like. There was all kinds of flowers growing there that I'd never seen anyplace else in Switzerland. There's about 2 acres of incredible foliage. There are 2 or 3 meditation gardens, and it's very beautiful. But I think that people are always looking for proof, and I have to end by saying it's all over the place. Whether you go to England and see the crop circle phenomenon, and we had 3 of them in Italy. Just as I was leaving, we had one in Milano, and you know, however you interpret that, or whether you look at the contact phenomenon, I wish to use that word instead of, abductions. John says that's a human word. At least they put you back. So sometimes, I mean, I don't know who's gone and never come back, but he says to use the word contact, which I approve of. Whether you're looking at that, whether you're looking at military kinds of interviews, and I have a lot of them in my book, whether you're looking at crashes, or whether you're looking at sightings that a lot of people have, it's one big cosmic minestrone. My job is just to give you the information for you to reach your own conclusions, but always to keep an open mind and perhaps to have a different perspective that maybe we're the aliens.
Thanks for indulging my curiosity. And now this is the time where all you guys get to indulge your curiosity.
I have a question. I love your European perspective on the phenomenon being received by the public in a different way and being portrayed in a slightly different way than it is here usually. I have a 2-year-old son, and I've been watching a lot of kids' TV lately, unfortunately. He's been sick, and I've been watching various shows. And there are a lot of UFO themes in the children's shows all of a sudden. I know when I grew up with Sesame Street, they didn't have an alien sketch. Now they do. The Wiggles have an alien character, and they were lying on the grass looking up at the sky saying, I wonder if she can see us right now. And they were thinking about her, and then she wrote hello in a big contrail. And I mean, there are all these things in children's programming. There's a lot of reptilians, David Icke would point out. I wanted to know, in the children's programming in Italy or other European countries you may be more familiar with, do you see the same kind of desensitization going on with the children's programming?
To answer that, no, I don't see it in the children's programming except the superheroes, which we have mostly Japanese cartoons, the superheroes. But can I add something else to what you're saying? Because you use the word desensitization. I really believe that what's coming out of the UFO phenomenon is a slow process release of information. If you really do research, Disney Studios a long time ago was approached on this. I have a video called Alien Encounters that has Clifford Stone on it, and it's talking about Disney, and it was shown for a very short time. Plus, I did some research on Gene Roddenberry and on Steven Spielberg and Uri Geller together, and on a lot of things where I believe that in the 1970s something was done, something was decided for a slow process release of information in the entertainment field. Now, you couldn't do it like you have to have E.T. be outrageous, but you have E.T. coming here and contacting children. So maybe I think that if you look at the media, the history of the media, after Close Encounters, I think there's definite effort to tell the truth, because it's going to have to come out. We're going into space. It's going to come out. There's no choice, okay? When we go there, we're not staying on Earth. When we go there and people see things, what's going to be told to them is, we already told you. It's been in your movies, it's been in the newspaper, it's been all over. So just take this perspective, okay? It's not going to be hidden very long.
Paula, thank you for showing all those scenes from Roswell, which we made about 10 years ago.
Paul, thank you for doing Roswell. You don't know how grateful we are to you.
Thank you. The Mexican UFOs look sort of like these blobs, and you don't really get a shape to them. Some people I talked to said they thought they weren't UFOs because of that. But in fact, those were photographed by infrared, and what you're looking at is the heat given off by the object, correct? It's not,
right,
you're not
right.
seeing the shape of the object, you're seeing the glow of the heat given off by it.
Exactly. Not only that, but the Spanish translation tells them that they were, the people on the plane said, these are intelligently controlled vehicles, and then the speed in which they took off. I don't think a globe of light is going to just automatically sit there and then take off. So they're looking at intelligently controlled whatever. So yeah, I agree, it is the heat.
our media explain them as swamp gas.
Well, you know, they did that with Alan Hynek, too. He was supposed to tell everybody it was swamp gas. You know, the thing that we do, though, is to accept that without saying, can you show us that it's swamp gas, please? Can you give us the analysis that it's swamp gas? Can we have the scientific analysis of swamp gas? We just automatically accept it's swamp gas because it's easier. And why is it easier? Because if you truly believe that there is something out there, the responsibility is enormous. That's what I think.
Hello, Paula.
Hi there, Bill. Bill is from Colorado. I will be doing a conference for you in
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks from now. So yeah.
Since the Mexican incident, I've been thinking, and this is not really a question, but food of thought for us to think about, with the inevitable first contact coming, what country will it occur in? Could it occur in Mexico, which is quite open and hospitable to UFOs, or in Italy, as we learned tonight from you? So this is not a question, but food for thought to, would they come to America, where secrecy abounds and perhaps might be frightened to be shot down? So that's just a thought that I have for the folks tonight.
Well, you used a couple of words that I'm going to take, issue with. First contact. Contact happened a long time ago, way a long time ago, way before Roswell. I think that contact has been wherever it's open to contact. I mean, I don't think you'll ever have contact where they land on the White House lawn. That's not the kind of contact. Any kind of contact has been for agenda purposes. They say, what could the alien agenda be? Well, God knows. I know our agenda is technology. People say, well, why did I have it? It's not what's inside the craft. It has nothing to do with who they are or where they come from. It's a technology. Who gets the technology? Who gets the toys? I really believe that's the bottom line of the UFO phenomenon. Who gets the technology? What can we do with it? And you know something? I think we need to take responsibility, because if we take our toys to the moon or the Mars, we got serious stuff going on. So I think that it's really the contact has come about, whether they say, and we studied the German question too, because why did we get the scientists? Von Braun was very knowledgeable about UFOs. So what all happened in Germany? I mean, you can go and look at this very seriously. Crashes all over the world. Clifford Stone has shown me the places where there's been crashes all over the world. So it's about, I think, the technology. Colonel Corso was very clear about that when he was talking about when we had these things. Some of them, like the laser, could cure but they also can destroy. It's our choice. It's always our choice. Are we going to get a laser to destroy, or are we going to use the laser to cure? So it's the human beings that I think that have the ethical questions here.
Hi there, Paula. I'm Bill's son, so he's visiting me. A couple of quick questions on clarification with that Mexico thing, and the first thing that came to mind for me reading the article that my dad sent me, if it's infrared that was used to photograph that, and if this is like, it almost seems like stupidly obvious after 50 years, like why haven't we been scouring the skies with infrared from day one 50 years ago? How long has infrared been around? Then these things could be anywhere at any time at any given point.
Exactly.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Go out and buy infrared cameras tomorrow, okay? Is the message of this. And if that's, I guess, clarification of, has there ever, it seems simplistic that a UFO of their technology would give off heat. See what I'm saying? So is there not so much, whoever said the mustard gas or whatever they had said a second ago, swamp gas, thank you. Could it be something else, not that it's not a UFO also?
Well, it's a propulsion system, and that's what everybody's after. Mm-hmm. It's a propulsion. You want to hear my thoughts on it? We've already played with that. We're just waiting. I mean, there's timing to everything. So we're just waiting till the right time, till the propulsion system is out where we need it. Right now, we can't do any propulsion system with oil around or anything else that we market. Okay, so I think that could come off from a propulsion system. I mean, you can see dozens of UFO pictures. Carlos Diaz's, my God, dozens where there's some kind of electromagnetic energy that produces color. I mean, around it. Yeah, that's. And as far as cameras, do you honestly believe that other countries have not seen something in infrared, and maybe didn't get the idea that you just got, you know, yeah, but the only difference is that we're not being told about it. Of course, I mean, that's the first thing that they're going, oh my God, why do these guys talk about it? This is the first impression of anybody that's studying this. Why did they come out? And then why couldn't it be some hokey old person? Why does it have to be the Department of Defense? They've even got the name of the guy. Do you know how many people wrote that man thank you? I think all of us should have written him a thank you. This is the Minister of Defense of Mexico. That's activism. Thank you very much for coming out with it.
Yes, the film clip you showed at the beginning, was that a meeting of Majestic 12?
No, that was Paul David's film, Roswell. Yeah, it's like...
Organization based on the concept of MJ-12. Those were all professional actors seen from the movie. We were trying to reenact what people think MJ-12 did at that time.
What was the name of that movie?
Roswell.
It's called Roswell. Or sometimes Roswell, the UFO cover-up. And you can get the DVD from Amazon.com.
Here it is.
That's the VHS, yeah. There's a DVD.
So that was like shown on cable television initially?
Yes.
With Kyle MacLachlan, Martin Sheen.
Dwight Yoakam.
Yeah, and Dwight Yoakam. Do you know how real this film is? Only because I've talked to the people. I mean, I talked to the mortician. I've been down to Roswell 3 times, and what Paul did was use their testimony, and he used it in a movie. But I think this was what needs to happen. Even though people look at this and they think it's script written, I've talked to the mortician. He said the same things he said in this movie.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Dr. Joe Burks, and I want to thank you for emphasizing the word contact over abduction, which is a criminal act. Many people have questions about the abduction theorists. I want to ask you a specific question as a journalist, because I read Day After Roswell. It was a very exciting book. Some of my colleagues in the hospital, they knew I was interested and came up in it. They had read it too. One question came up in my mind was why he did not provide specifics in terms of the actual companies and individuals that the technology was farmed out to in order to work with it. It's a fascinating story, but he provides no information that allows us to corroborate the story. I was wondering if that question ever came up and he provided an answer.
Yeah, he mentioned Bell Labs. To us, he mentioned Bell Labs. He mentioned, I don't know if Shulman came out right after that book that the American Computer Company got its contracts from the Army. I mean, he collaborated that right away.
I think that was later shown not to be true.
But a lot of contracts from Army go to major top companies. But you can imagine a major top company coming forward and saying, we got this technology. They didn't even know. I don't think they knew.
I was looking for the names of individuals.
Individual people? I don't think that was his intent. I think that his intent was to tell what happened with the Roswell artifacts. And remember something also, he was in the Army. The Air Force also had artifacts. So the Air Force did what they did with their artifacts. He was talking about the Army artifacts. And then you didn't ask me the question, but why did he wait that long maybe to tell about it? It was a pact he had made with the generals that the last one alive would tell about it, and Trudeau died, and that made Colonel Corso the last one alive to tell about it.
Thank you.
Would you be so kind, if you wouldn't mind elaborating a little bit on what does the Vatican think about off-planet life? If you would be comfortable talking about it.
I don't know what the Vatican thinks about off-planet life, but Vatican has archives. And I think there's a lot of information in those archives that they are probably privy to that we won't be for some reason. The other thing that interests me greatly is the observatory they have on Mount Taylor with all that equipment. It's very interesting that they're looking at a lot of equipment at Mount Taylor, and it used to be an Indian reservation now. Like Indians had to move. So I'm wondering, are we all looking at the skies for the same reasons? Logically, I'd say yes, but really, I have never asked, and I have never gone into Vatican archives, and I have asked Padre Balducci if they know something, and he doesn't know. He just surmises. It's mostly philosophy, more than proof.
So are they basically open to communicating about it? They just have not come to a conclusion, perhaps?
Well, having cosmic life in the planet is not exclusive of religion. I mean, it's not like either or. I mean, they're like Padre Balducci says, he's really cute about this. They're all God's children. So I mean, that's logic for him. Mm-hmm. There's no conflict there. But as far as anything else official other than Padre Balducci, no. I have not heard anything.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. So
Hi.
I was really bemused by this news flash from Mexico and all, because about 10 years ago, or I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, I saw on Fox News, Beyond Hidden Mysteries or some such thing, had purported to be footage from Mexican news where they had 3 years in a row over Mexico City, without the infrared, right? Sightings of all these fleets of stuff and these scrambled jets and all that, and they made it pretty convincing. It seemed like that's what, like it was a legit deal, the way they did. It was a double feature with the family that was taking home movies, and their electricity went weird and they were freaking out at the very end. You saw the alien coming,
Okay. Can I say something about Mexico in general? Okay, in San Marino, we have a lot of representation from Mexico. They have so many sightings that they think it's normal. Okay, they don't think it's anything unusual. Mm-hmm. The case of Carlos Diaz for me is really interesting because his movies and his pictures are really very clear. And he lives in Tepoztlan, which is 20 miles away from Cuernavaca. Roberto Pinotti went to do research with Carlos Diaz. So did John Mack. And when Dr. Pinotti went, he's our MUFON guy. He saw a UFO over Carlos's house.
Right.
He saw it. He got out of the car and he saw one right away over Carlos's house. And he said, and he's been testimony. He's got on Italian television and said, yeah, I saw it. It was a light right over his house when we got out there.
This footage wasn't infrared or anything else, and supposedly everybody in Mexico City was expecting. They came back the same day for about 3 years or something. So.
Unfortunately, until it's worldwide, it won't be worldwide accepted.
Yeah. It had me convinced. So, but I said well, what's the big deal? This is old news, So 10 years ago.
Hi, my name's Doug Millar. I really enjoyed your presentation tonight. I was at Roswell for the 50th anniversary of the crash. I'm sure a lot of people here were. And, there's been talk that a lot of the technology that Tesla developed was financed by J.P. Morgan and then shipped over. Once you got it to a certain point, it was shipped to the Germans, and they went ahead and developed it and created UFOs. Do you write about that in your book, about the fact that they had some one?
I never heard that it was shipped to the Germans. I heard that he brought it to this country, and he was in competition with, was it Edison? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that a lot of the information that he had was put underground. In other words, didn't come out for political reasons. But let me add something, and I haven't written about this yet, but I'm going to. People like Tesla, people like Marconi. I just found out from having talked to someone who worked with Marconi, Guillermo Marconi, that they had contact of some kind. Because Marconi, the person that worked with Marconi just died. He was 93 years old. His name was Egina, and I went to do an interview with him. And he confessed to me that he and Marconi had gotten a lot of information from what he called the outsiders. And he said it in Italian, the outsiders. And I'm wondering, okay, if you're admitting you got information from the outsiders, how many other geniuses, how many other inventions, and how much other technology comes from inspiration from the outsiders? So that presents a whole other issue.
Are you familiar with the book that was written by someone down in New Mexico? I've forgotten his name now, but it's called Space Aliens from the Pentagon.
No.
It's a fascinating book talking about, the fact that the Germans had the technology and our government brought it over here after the World War II. And
I heard it was crash saucer, though. It was from a crash saucer.
And also, it was fascinating to learn that I've got a book out in my car. I wish I could find it, but I got too much stuff in there. But it shows a UFO. It looks like a flying saucer, and it has U.S. Army on one side and U.S. Air Force on the other side. And there's a man there coming out of the cockpit. And based on his size, it's probably the equivalent of 50 to 75 feet in diameter. Have you ever seen a photograph of something like that?
No. I haven't, but go on my website, because Clark McClellan, who's ground crew astronaut I told you about, talks about technology that's advanced. He saw in Belize, and he says it's our stuff. So go on my website, because he just came out with that story this week.
Okay, that's good to hear, because this photograph, of course, Air Force and the Army, as we know, the World War II, the U.S. Army had the Air Force as an arm of it. They weren't separate at that time.
1948 they became,
Exactly. So what I'm getting at is that, some of us have studied this a lot. I've spoken at UFO meetings in Denver, and I spoke in Arizona on these things. The bottom line is, what I'm getting at is that they say that under Operation Paperclip, that many of those Nazi doctors, scientists, etc., were brought over here to continue and going from the 1- and 2-man Hitler's flying saucers into a lot of these other things. Now, I met a general, a 3-star general, had breakfast with him in Las Vegas, and he flies the Aurora.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the Aurora.
Yeah, I just showed it.
Right. I'm sorry, I was outside of that book. I wasn't showing
with Ed Fouché. Yeah, the Aurora.
Okay,
Yeah, that's very interesting. That it gets really tricky, because we don't know what we're seeing anymore, whether it's our stuff or their stuff.
Okay. Your contact from the Vatican, was that Father Balducci?
Yeah, Monsignor Corrado Balducci, yeah.
Did he mention anything to you about the prediction of Fatima?
Yes.
Can you explain what he said?
Well, we're in a very crucial time right now. The prediction of Fatima had to do with the death of the Pope, was one part of it, and I talk about that in my book a little bit. The Pope was not killed because of a quirk in the fact that somebody, a nun, actually elbowed Ali as he was pointing the gun right at the Pope's heart. And that's an example I use, and I think the Pope knows this, as an alteration in the chain of time events, because it mentions that there would be an attempt on the Pope in one of the predictions of Fatima. And of course, something happened. Look at the coincidence. The name of the nun was Lucia, the same name as one of the children of Fatima, and she altered that time event by moving elbowing Ali, so he didn't actually kill the Pope, and the Pope was alive. And he is apart from the fact of his religious nature, he is one of the greatest peacemakers we have here as far as wanting peace. But I have to say that Padre Balducci thinks that there's a possibility of a third world war from that prediction. Yeah.
So the assassination attempt on the Pope in 1981, that was, I heard that was a cover-up for the real prediction as proposed by Cardinal Ratzinger.
No, it wasn't one prediction. There are about 5 or 6 predictions in that message. There wasn't just one. It's not one thing. But one of the possibilities, again, I don't want to get into it because I don't have time here, but there's a whole issue of time travel. This whole issue of future time, of future being lived, of there being no such thing as time, is altering something in the chain of time, and then you alter the future. This is what Phil Corso Jr. talked about, that his father had left behind, the idea of time travel at the X conference. So if you look at it as altering one chain in the situation of time, if there's supposed to be a third conflict, and hopefully there won't be one, we can change that with changing one element of the present. So I'm really interested in that. And he did say that there's a possibility of that. That was one of the possibilities. Yeah.
Had he been in contact with Father Malachi Martin?
No, but I heard about him.
Okay. Have you met Linda Moulton Howe?
Oh yeah, we're very good friends. She spent a week at my home just recently. Yeah, I've been following her story and the Dan Burr story. Yeah, we've known each other since the Hynek days. Well, I think we're the only two. There's a couple more people in ufology that are women, but Linda Howe and I are one of the top.
Okay, in your Billy Meier story, I'm hard of hearing. Did you mention as a West Coast or American representative who was originally from the LA area here? I can't remember.
You mean Tom Horn? Is it Tom Horn? That puts out a DVD?
Well, he's been interviewed by either George Norrie or RTL.
Yeah, I think it's Tom. Yeah. I've never met this gentleman, but the people at FIGU told me to get in contact with him, that he has some information, and he talks about him here, yeah. I haven't met him yet.
His name is Tom Paula, you say?
Horn. Isn't it Horn?
Oh yeah, it's Horn. Yeah, Michael Horn.
Oh, is it Michael Horn? Michael Horn, okay. I'd love to meet him, yeah.
Okay, we've got time for one last question.
Okay.
Hello, I'm probably the only lucky guy here that didn't need translation tonight.
Are you Italian? Ma sei italiano?
Sì.
Oh, meno male. Allora, conosci Maurizio Costanzo?
Sì.
Vabbè,
It's been
okay.
around for a very long time.
Vabbè.
I have actually two questions, very brief. One of them being, because you have such a great connection with the Vatican, and I read a book about Father Maria Ronetti. I'm pretty sure you heard about him. And no. Okay.
No.
Supposedly he's a person that the only one that is achieved to build a time machine and
sì, yes.
By the Vatican. So.
See, yeah. But that's a controversial issue, yeah.
I know, but I was wondering if you were aware about that.
Yeah. These people are really hard to access. So, I mean, I heard about it, I read about it, but they're really hard to access. And I'm curious about all the time travel stuff and how that relates to this phenomenon and so forth.
Well, they say that the actual machine is kept in the Vatican very well.
Yeah, but Corso told me they had experimented with it here too. It's not a machine. It's a way of. Okay. So if you go to the end of my book, I talk about the paranormal. I did not talk about it tonight because it would be too much. But there are ways of accessing the future. There are ways of knowing. There are ways that have been used. I mean, when in 1970, when SRI is doing research on spying, then why is all that money being put into something that isn't real? It's real. There's all kinds of material out there that show that this is all connected. That's what the book is called, Connecting the Dots, and the idea of going into the future. And it's not a machine. I think we've got this idea of some kind of box. No, you don't have to do some kind of box. There's ways of doing this without doing a box. And look at the Philadelphia experiment. All these things. It blows me away that I have to be honest with this. If we're talking 1942 for some of these things, we're 60 years later. So what's going on 60 years later? If that's 1942, I'm wondering about a lot of this stuff.
And the next question is, I'm curious to know your thoughts about Zecharia Sitchin.
Yeah, he's in my book. Yeah, Zecharia Sitchin. Okay, he has his own theory about the origins of humanity, the Anunnaki, Planet X, and Planet X, the Nibiru, and so forth. He's in my book because I did an interview with him after the sacking of the museum in Baghdad. Sitchin is really, he is really a good interview. I mean, if you get to talk to him, and he has his theories about the origin of the planet according to the Sumerian texts. He is a scholar. He travels the world. He has some very sound theories. But since I am not very good at ancient cultures, I am not going to tell you whether I believe them or not because I'm not an expert. But I'm certainly willing to put it in my book and have you read it and have other people do research. That's a whole other area. Okay.
Guys, let's put our hands together for Paula. Thanks so much for coming, Paula. Great talk.